Hello and welcome to Second Chance MTG. I'm here with Eric Mack, and we're here to watch Elves versus Red White Burn. This matchup is pretty interesting. There's a lot of different dynamics going on here. I believe the Elves deck is really just trying to combo as fast as possible, and the Burn deck is just trying to cap the 20 as fast as possible. What's your insight on the matchup, Eric?
I feel like Elves probably gonna be favored just because the deck is fast enough. Burn. I know that Ryan's got he's playing red-white, so he's got a lot of white splash. So he's got more like fetches and like duels than you would typically play in Burn. So it's probably gonna be pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think overall the Elves is pretty good. Elves are pretty good in this kind of matchup. The Elves are really good at grubbing up the ground, and it doesn't really deal a lot of damage to itself. So the Burn player is gonna have really hard time establishing a 20 damage. And again, just the mulligan's also very much worse for the Burn deck than the Elves deck. It looks like Justin's leading off on a Deathrite Shaman. Again, another reason why this could be a difficult matchup for the Burn deck. Deathrite Shaman is very problematic for someone who is trying to deal someone 20 damage.
Yeah, a lot of incremental life gain.
Mm-hmm. It looks like he's going to bolt the Deathrite Shaman. That makes sense.
I mean, every time you bolt a creature, it's it's 3 damage off your life total. So the pressure is really falling off here.
Yeah, it's a really big issue for the Burn player to have to point burn spells at the creatures instead of the opponent. Looks like he's going to be leading off with another Deathrite Shaman.
You gotta be feeling really bad about that bolt now.
I mean, the problem. I mean, the Deathrite Shamans are going to be really problematic for him. It looks like he has an extra decent one more land in his hand. Probably a couple too many. He's probably going to end up shocking this Deathrite right here. If he's killing the first one, he probably has to kill the second one, or he's going to pass, let him have it. That's fascinating. Maybe he's planning on sudden shocking it in response to him trying to play something. I feel like if I'm Justin, I'd probably just try to gain the life right now, but knowing. Seeing the matchup, though, it might not be 100% sure exactly everything this one's playing here. It's a little bit hard to tell. Sylvan Library is an interesting card. I don't know how much life he's going to want to take off that one. Looks like he's just going to hit him for 1.
Sylvan Library is really weird here because it feels like, I mean, you're never going to take the 4, so it feels like it's going to have a lot of impact at first where you get to see, like, some extra cards. But unless he sees a fetch land, it's not like he's ever going to take, like, any damage off of it anyway.
Well, I still think it's probably really good in this kind of spot where he took a mulligan again, and he has certain cards that really matter in the matchup. He has a Glimpse of Nature he wants to probably set up. So I think it's really powerful. And again, with cards like Green Sun Zenith, like in his hand, he can shuffle his deck. He can still shuffle his deck. So I think the Sylvan Library is going to be really powerful here, especially since his opponent's not really putting a ton of pressure on him. Well, now as the pressure's in play now, Sulfuric Vortex is here. That's actually really good for him. It's going to prevent the Deathrite Shamans in the future from being problematic. And again, this is going to put a clock on Justin to the point where he's going to have to somehow combat this the Burn deck. Looks like he's triggering Sylvan Library. He's going to draw 3. Looks like there's a Forest, Elvish Visionary, and a Green Sun Zenith in the top 3. He probably wants the land, or maybe I guess not. He's going to take the Visionary. He probably maybe play the Visionary.
Well, I like the Visionary because you play the Visionary, you draw the land, and then you can play the Green Sun and shuffle, and then try again next turn.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's not the worst line. I do think as long as he's get the land this turn, I think it's a fine play. It's like he's got a Green Sun for Dryad Arbor.
For the Dryad Arbor, yeah.
Which I like. He wants to make sure you try to develop his board as fast as he can. He needs to start racing his Sulfuric Vortex. Probably grabbing the Arbor. Hopefully he remembers to shuffle Green Sun Zenith back into his deck. Looking like he's
forgetting the Green Sun Zenith.
Well, hopefully one of them catches that at this point. That would be rather embarrassing.
Okay, yeah, there we go. Okay, Ryan's gonna random. Okay.
Yeah, Green Sun Zenith is a very interesting card. Very interesting templating where it requires you to shuffle your deck twice. Fun fact for cards that care about that kind of interaction. Regular draw. Ryan also takes 2 from Sulfuric Vortex, which is very important to note. So the Elf player can a lot of the time just race Sulfuric Vortex just by playing a couple Elves and just start racing his opponents, especially if his opponent has no pressure in play. So he's just passing the turn with some bolts at the ready.
Yeah, really strange that Ryan hasn't actually picked up any of his Mentors or Eidolons or anything like that. Those cards are all really good in this matchup.
Yeah, he needs a creature, at least one creature, to at least try to squeak out some damage, especially since he'd already mulliganed and pointed some removal spells at creatures, because he's so down on resources. Look, he has 3 cards in hand. His opponent's at 16. This is not the ideal start for him, and I think again the Elf split deck is very good at assembling a very quick offense. So I think that.
So he picked up Cradle.
Cradle is a Quarian Ranger. He's going for a value glimpse here. He's probably gonna be able to draw at least around 2 or 3, maybe 3 cards off this. He'll draw off the playing the Korean Ranger. Visionary, okay, actually, he's
so
like, this is gonna be a pretty good glimpse after all. He'll be able to draw 2 cards, one off casting the Visionary, one off the Visionary resolving. So he'll draw 2. He has the Cradle, so Deathlord Shaman, that's a really good pickup here, despite not being able to gain life. Cradle's gonna make 4 mana here. It looks like, well, his opponent. Looks like, yeah, his opponent really can't respond to the mana ability, so he's gonna be able to make his 4 mana regardless of this lightning bolt. So, yeah, it looks like they're having a little discussion about that right now. But since the mana ability, Justin should be allowed to make his mana before no matter when the lightning bolt resolves. Looks like they're discussing it at the moment. Yeah, it looks like Ryan might just be picking up the fault here. Okay, so he's just gonna continue. So he has 3 mana floating after the Deathlord Shaman. He's gonna draw for Glimpse. He still has the Korean Ranger, which will allow him to untap the Dryad Arbor. Draw again. If he finds a Heritage Druid here, I think we're off to the races. Looks like he's Ryan's just tapping his land. He didn't want to end up playing the Lightning Bolt there after all, he realized he couldn't interact with the Cradle the way he wanted to. Well, this is the scary part about Elves. His opponent's got a Green Sun Zenith. I think he has enough to grab a Heritage Druid, and if that's the case, I think we're going to be in for a show. He might go for the Wirewood Symbiote to be able to pick up the Visionary and just kind of go that plan as well. Looks like
he's the Heritage Druid.
Yeah, looks like he has a Heritage Druid. I'm pretty sure. Okay, so
he's gonna bolt the Sentinel.
Well, I mean, there's a timing issue here where Justin regains priority after Green Sun resolves. So Justin can make mana in response to that, but and also they forgot to shuffle Green Suns back in.
Yeah,
there's a little bit too much going on right now for his opponent to be reminding him of it. So Justin going to activate the Korean Ranger. It looks like no, he's just going to pass the turn. He, interestingly enough, didn't even bother to attack.
Didn't attack. Well, the only thing they could have attacked was the Visionary, right?
I believe it was the Korean Ranger had been in play from last turn, I believe, so that could have attacked. So again, very surprising he didn't use the ability. There's the
that Eidolon is just a little bit late here.
It's not necessarily the worst thing here. It actually does a good job of brick walling Justin's board over here, and it also stops this Korean Ranger from really doing any kind of good work. It looks like we're going to trigger a late Sylvan Library. Did Justin? Okay, no. Okay, so he took the so he got Green Sun Zenith. Now, if Justin knows, he can Green Sun Zenith for extra amounts of mana in order to get around the Eidolon. Though it looks like here he can just go for Cradle of Behemoth. Because, yeah, we're gonna. This should be Cradle of Behemoth, and this should probably be the game. Yeah, it's definitely enough mana for the Cradle Hoof at that point. It's 6 off the Cradle and 3 off the other lands. So, I think we'll be going to game 2 in a second here. Yeah,
there's the Crater Hoof.
And again, the burn deck typically has really no answer to this kind of board state. Once this happens, this is not really what you can do. You're just gonna die. All right, so we're gonna be moving on to game 2. Now, what's interesting about Ryan's build, the burn deck, is that he's playing a not just a white. There's a very heavy white sideboard in it that he has for this deck. It's not just like a couple white cards like sometimes you see. He has a lot of hate bears in the sideboard for matchups like this. He has there's Eastersworn Canonist. He has Spirit of the Labyrinth. There's Thalias. He has cards like that he can bring in. I think again, being a burn deck, you don't want to board in too many of these types of cards because again, you need to keep your game plan very streamlined for the most part. I do think he needs some form of interaction because I do think this matchup is just a tad bit fast for him. So I could see him bringing in maybe the Eastersworn Canonist. I like the Spirit of the Labyrinth to try to stop the Glimpse turns. And again, just kind of like, just bringing in some early game threats that slow down his opponent. If he has any number of Searing Blazes, I'm sure those are coming in, hopefully, if he has them. Because that's probably one of the more important cards in this kind of matchup.
Yeah, anything that can remove creatures and still direct damage. Yeah. Probably going to be really beneficial, so he's not wasting lightning bolts on Deathrite Shamans for 2 turns in a row.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, it's never great when you're playing the burn deck and you have to spend your first 2 burn spells on your opponent's creatures, and it's really problematic being that his opponent led up with the second Deathrite Shaman. So it was like once you kill the first one, you're kind of committed to killing the second. And the Silverian Vortex, while being good at negating the life gain, is also problematic because again, the Elf deck does a very good job of just racing the burn deck as far as damage on the board. Oh yeah, it should be interesting. As far as the Elf opponent goes, I'm assuming he's going to bring in... he'll probably assume there's some kind of artifact A coming in. Or some kind of, I should say, or should be probably bring some kind of, like, you know, there's Eidolons in the deck. He'll probably bring in whatever copies of Reclamation Sage he has. Maybe he brings in Abrupt Decays for, like, Eidolon. But again, that's a card that could be problematic for him. Other than that, whatever life gain he has, like if there's a Scavenging used on the sideboard, that probably comes in. Just things to gain life. And because he doesn't necessarily need to combo this burn deck as fast as possible. He just needs to be on the board. And that's, again, as long as anything that gains life along the way is probably good enough to bring in. I think traditionally this is a matchup, again, that is just difficult for the burn deck. The Elves deck does invalidates a lot of the cards of the burn deck very quickly. And it just goes over the top very quickly to the point where the burn deck usually can't race. So we're going to shovel on up, be ready to present in a little bit. Ryan will luckily be on the play, so he'll be able to hopefully leverage that. Maybe have a Goblin Guide on turn 1, you know, something.
Yeah, I mean, a Goblin Guide into an Eidolon, you know, something that would have been ideal for game 1 is probably still going to be good enough.
Yeah, he wants Goblin Guide definitely like on the first turn. You know, past turn 1, it becomes a lot more tenuous because the Elf player again is very good at coming up the board. And you know, even like a turn 3 Eidolon could be far too late to really get in anything of worth. Looks like we're presenting right now. I'm curious to see how many of the white Hate Bear cards that Ryan decided to bring in for this kind of matchup. But again, you know, you don't want to board too much in your burn deck just because you don't want to dilute your deck and not be able to perform your game 1 game plan. Well, looks like Ryan looks like there's only one land in his hand over here. But I see some Goblin Guides and a Sulfuric Vortex. I mean, his hand looks risky, but you might keep it. It looks like he's going to ship it. Again, the mulligans are really tough on the burn deck. It usually needs every resource it has to squeeze out the game, so hopefully he's able to find a better 6. I can't tell if Justin's keeping or not. It looks like he's shoveling his hand around. I'm thinking he's keeping. He probably would have shipped it back by now. Yeah, he's going to his opponent's deck, so I think it's safe to assume he's going to keep his hand. Alright, so the burn player's on 6. Always able to find something good here. Alright, I see
a Goblin Guide. Looks like a Bloodstained Mire, yeah.
It looks like that.
This hand looks pretty keepable to me.
Yeah,
he's taking his stride. It's like a Goblin Guide on top, it looks like. I don't know.
Looks like you really can't afford to go much lower than this in burn anyway. It looks like, he scried the card to the bottom. He probably wants to land. Though, if he's going to be playing a fetch land on turn 1, he...
Probably doesn't even matter.
Yeah, I like scrying to the top when I'm going to fetch anyway. Oh, Grim Lava Master. That's a really good card in the matchup. But that's a card that could definitely make up a mulligan. And if Justin's not able to interact with that card, that could end up really tampering his game. Justin probably going to grab a basic land here just to play around Price of Progress because there's really no reason for him to grab the Bayou unless he really has one of his few black sideboard cards in there. And again, just playing around Price is just so... Like, that card is so powerful, there's no reason to let it do extra damage to you. Looks like he's going to read the Grim Lava Master, he's not going to like what he sees. And yeah, looks like he's just going to play a creature into the maul of the Grim Lava Mancer, and this is unfortunately sometimes what the Elf deck has to do. There's not a lot you're going to really afford to do in this spot. It looks like Ryan didn't have a fetch land, so that's good for him, but it looks like this Lightning Bolt's probably going to go upstairs, and the Grim Lava Mancer might just finish off the Elf there. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a Lightning Bolt and Goblin Guide.
Oh, Goblin Guide. Okay, so it's interesting.
I don't.
Oh, he's offering the trade.
He's swinging.
He's offering the trade. That's
that's.
I don't really.
I do not like this at all.
Yeah.
I feel like the Grim Lava Mancer is probably the best way at keeping the board under control without using resources. But Justin actually doesn't take the trade there.
I'm very surprised that both Ryan swung and Justin took that hit.
I definitely feel like taking the trade was probably
much more beneficial.
His probably best chance at winning that game.
Well, I mean, this is interesting. I mean, both players are taking unorthodox lines. I mean, I'm curious to see where this ends up. But again, the Grim Lawmancer, I expected to shoot down the Elf, but clearly Ryan has other plans, and so does Justin because it's going on. He's got the Cradle making 2 right now. Let's see what he's able to follow up with that.
There's
Oh
the
man,
Heritage Druid.
yeah, this is scary here. If he plays another 1-drop elf here, which looks like he has in his hand, he could be off to the races right now. And again, this is the problem with Ryan's line of not killing the Korean Ranger here now.
Right, had he killed the Korean Ranger, he would have only had 2 elves.
This turn wouldn't be possible, and I think right now it's going to get to the point where the game is going to be out of control for Ryan very quickly. Because right now Justin can make 3 more mana here, and depending on what's in his hand, it looks like he has a Natural Order, a Dryad Arbor, and one other card. I mean, this is still a very problematic board, and now the Nettle Sentinel can protect his other elves from being killed by the Grim Lawmancer, so he's in a real tight spot right now as far as removing certain elves off the table. Looks like he just has, is that 2 Natural Orders, I believe?
It's like, I saw a Dryad Arbor, a Natural Order.
He has one other card. I think it's another Natural Order. Also, he's making 3 mana here. Picking it up with the Wildwood Symbiote to untap the Korean Ranger. Oh, he's got to pick up the Forest. Yeah, I don't know why he picked up. He's using the Korean Ranger ability to pick up the other land. Okay, yeah. So he's actually going to use this to play Natural Order this turn. This will make another 3 mana. Now he's got a Natural Order. Yeah. This is looking real bad for the bird player. Yeah, he has a Progenitus. Oh man, this is well, the burn player's in real trouble now. That is a 2-turn clock for the burn player. That there's really nothing he can do to stop, I believe. I do not believe he has Deflecting Palm, unfortunately. That would be one of the few ways he could use to pivot against the Progenitus, but
even then, he would need to pick up a White Source and Deflecting Palm within the next turn.
I'm a little surprised to see Progenitus come in a matchup like this. I think Cradle Behemoth does just fine in finishing off the opponent, but I mean, it looks like it's going to get the job done here because, I mean, at this point, the Progenitus is just going to present too much of a clock.
You know, it does all stem right back down to choosing to swing with the Grim Lavamancer instead of killing the Ranger to begin with. Really just got out of control, like, really fast.
Oh, I 100% agree. I think that the Elf deck is snowballed so fast out of control that the Burn deck needs to do everything it can to just pin it down its resources and make cards like Natural Order not effective enough to win the game. Unfortunately, the Burn deck doesn't really have much recourse once it gets to this point in the game. The Progenitus is easily going to be able to kill Ryan in 2 turns, and I do not believe Ryan can deal enough damage to finish the game off unless his hand is exceptional. It's like he's going to activate Good Lawmancer.
So I'm sure he's doing.
I hope he's going after he's going upstairs, and I think that's correct because at this point.
Yeah, at this point, the only way he's gonna win is if he draws. Probably gonna have to draw like Lightning Bolt, and Fire Blast.
Yeah, Bolt Blast would be able to get the job done here, provided that he has no life gain. What's that? The card he's playing a. What did that card he played do?
Reverent Silence. Doesn't
that give your opponent life?
That gives your opponent life. That shouldn't. I don't believe that should have changed his life total.
So Justin should still be at 9, but I don't know how much it matters here. He's going to swing with Progenitus for 10 damage. His opponent clearly can't block it. But giving his opponent life seems very risky in this kind of spot, which is giving his opponent more draws to a land.
Yeah, they gave him another turn, and he did draw a White Source, but he didn't actually have any white cards in hand.
Even with the Grim Lavamancer, just even if fetch lands is not a bad draw here, it's more damage so you can point directly at Justin. And again, now the Progenitus is a 3-turn clock instead of a 2-turn clock, which really gives Ryan a chance to come back in this game. Alright, looks like he's going to be playing some Sulfuric Vortex here. Interestingly enough, after his opponent gave him life, he's going to play a card that says that that's no longer a thing. Well, I mean, it looks like all Ryan has left in his hands is another Sulfuric Vortex, which I don't think is going to be good enough to beat Progenitus at this point.
No, you really need a Fire Blast in order to actually close out the game.
Swing with the Goblin guy, he's going to let him pick up a Woodfill Hills. That doesn't really matter too much at this point. Looks like Justin's going to be blocking the Goblin guy with something. He's going to block it and then return it to his hand with the Nettle Sentinel. Alright. Not Nettle Sentinel, the Wyvern Symbiote. Alright, so it looks like he bought the Goblin guy on tap. We'll draw. If he's able to produce another, looks like his hand's full, mostly lands. He has 5 lands, including 2 Dried Arbors and the Aquarian Ranger in his hand. So I don't think he's going to be able to kill Orion this turn. He's going to give another turn. Justin should be at 7 here, which would leave him dead to if Ryan was able to draw a Lightning Bolt here. Well, if he drew Lightning Bolt, he could use Lightning Bolt and the Dream Lawmancer to actually finish off Justin here, depending on, or some kind of whatever 3 damage spell he could draw, as long as he could activate the Lawmancer in the same turn.
Mm-hmm.
Now I think Justin, I think what he should have probably done is, I think he maybe should have attacked with more creatures here to try to put more pressure on his opponent.
Yeah, I feel like after giving his opponent life, swinging with the whole board would have kind of erased the extra turn that he gave him.
Potentially, it would have made it so his opponent would have died to his no Sulfuric Vortex.
Wow, and he drew Eidolon just a little bit too late.
Yeah, I don't think Eidolon's
not going to be enough to keep him in this game here.
I mean, if he had another Sulfuric Vortex, if he could had a 4th land, he could have played that, and that would have been good enough to win the game, because he could have activated Grim Lawmancer at the same time. But it looks like that's not going to be the case, though. And despite the early Progenitus, it looks like Ryan's still barely going to lose this game. And again, the Elves deck is really explosive and very volatile. This is definitely shows that you need to make sure, like in a matchup like this, you need to make sure to try to keep them under control as much as you can. So swing with both. This is Hail Mary.
Blocked.
Blocks with both.
Yeah.
It's appropriate. He'll pick up one of his creatures. That's fine. None of this truly matters because the Progenitus is going to kill him. And okay, he's gonna kill the Aquarian Ranger, and looks like that's going to be the game. I believe as soon as Justin gets to go to his turn.
Yeah.
Looks like we're still going through some more operations here. Alright, Arshan's going to draw another forest. Nothing that matters here. I think if we just turn sideways with Progenitus, this game will be over. And looks like he's going to do it.
Yep,
and that's the game. And there's Eidolon. Yep. Again,
it looks like they did actually fix the life totals.
Yeah,
right
they had realized. I think they had realized at some point that the card does not do what they thought it did. Justin essentially just gave his opponent a chance to maybe come back in the game, but clearly wasn't enough. Again, I question the Progenitus coming in a matchup like this in general. I do not think this is a matchup where you need Progenitus, but unless he's main decking it, of course. But I do think that clearly it was good enough to get the job done there.
Yeah, I feel like realistically any big creature would have pretty much done the same thing. Really didn't particularly matter.
Yeah, I think a Crater Behemoth would have probably just been just as effective.